Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Cardfight Vanguard casting on Deviance Gaming. We are joined once again by my co-caster Deviance Firehawk.
Hello, everybody.
We are once again at Coffs Harbour Good Games, sponsored by Vincent Young, manager there, great guy.
He's pretty fantastic.
And we are coming at you again with our local weekly tournament of Cardfight Vanguard. Today we have a match featuring a Royal Paladin player on the left-hand side of the screen and a Gear Chronicle player on the right-hand side of the screen. Interesting to note about this game, both players are still testing out their decks for the upcoming Nationals, so we'll see how that goes.
Which we probably should have a vlog or two up while we're going to Nats.
Yes, we will. We will be doing some vlogs, doing some progress reports of how we're going in the tournament, how our travels go, things like that. So if you are interested in that, stay tuned and make sure to check that one out.
But back to the matchup, it's going to be an interesting one, this one, because Gearcron kind of has a little advantage here being able to put away that blaster engine.
Well, that's very true. If the Royal Paladin player is able to go very aggressive on the original turns, we can see the Gear Chronicle player counter in a number of ways, being able to both return their field and as well as they definitely are running the 10k vanillas in their deck, able to shut down a lot of the early aggression given by the Royal Paladin player.
Those 10k vanillas definitely make a difference, especially in this matchup and Grand Blue to a point as well. It just shuts down that early aggression where they can just come out of nowhere and like, I'm going to sit on grade 2 with a heap of 9ks.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. So we see both players drawing their opening hands. We'll see how the mulligans go. See our Gear Chronicle player taking 2 and our Royal Paladin player taking 3 by the looks.
As always, you do want to hit those grades up. Being able to get to 3 ultimately is the goal, at least.
Definitely. And I saw, looking at the Royal Paladin player's hand, it does look like he's playing a Vanguard list, running, I believe it's Benon, to be able to Counterblast 1 to call the unit that will allow you to Soul Blast when called from deck to draw a card, which is a very, very good engine that the Vanguard deck has by itself.
That hand advantage is definitely important, especially against Gearcron, because Gearcron's going to put a lot of those units back, and if you can replace that without going 2- in the hand, you're doing pretty well.
So we see drawing. It looks as though, oh yes, that's a very nice hand for the Royal Paladin player, looking as though he's got a Majesty Lord Blaster as his grade 3 at the moment. So a Ride of GG, that's not the greatest for the Gear Chronicle player. We'll see how this goes. Riding the 6k. Checks Vanguard Arc, damage check is Melon, and here we see that grade 2, History Maker called and attacked.
History Maker, big combo piece for that Gearcron, which is nice to have that out early.
Damage trigger check, a Benon, attacking, a draw trigger, power to the rearguard, not that it matters, and draw. Another Vanguard in the damage zone, draws a Stride fodder for turn. Riding, I believe that is Benon, so Benons are flying everywhere.
Swinging about guard?
13. We'll see what he decides to do. Goes for a no pass. Draw trigger, power and draw. So just stopping a lot of that early aggression. We can already see the Gear Chronicle player at a massive advantage.
Well, that draw definitely helps being able to just simply deny that early aggression, because the draw, you're up in hand at that point. Putting a guard down is not going to hurt you in that early game.
So 9,000 attack from History Maker. It's 5 guarded with that draw trigger, and then 16k. We'll see what the player decides to do. No guard. And no triggers there, and a critical trigger for the Vanguard player. Rides into Sanctuary Guard Dragon, discarding a draw trigger to search his deck for a grade 1. Call it to the rear guard.
Thoughts on what he should pick?
I believe you'll see in a second here, he will go for the grade 1 that allows him to Soul Blast and draw. Other popular plays are a Stride fodder. Because I'm not actually remembering the wording on Vanguard, whether it does call to field or whether it does call to add to hand. I believe it is to the field, in which case the Soul Blaster draw is quite fantastic.
Yeah, that would ultimately, even if there were other options at this point, I think getting that early draw against a Gearcron deck, who's going to more than likely throw him a big Metallica Phoenix turn.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see what happens. So, very, very strong play. Immediately going with his starter skill, allowing him to search a grade 2.
Blaster engine by the looks of it?
No, he's just going for some hand advantage. He's looking to play the matchup a little bit more passively, just to try and survive against the incoming, perhaps Metallica Phoenix Stride, given the Gear Chronicle player, or even just defend against the heal triggers a little bit more.
It's relatively smart to play this a little more passively and get that hand up and then go aggressive next turn. Just because you know the Gearcron, no matter what's going to throw a huge turn at you, and you probably want to build up that hand as fast as you can to survive and then come back with your own aggression the turn following, sorry.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting because a lot of the easiest way to beat Gear Chronicle is to actually go super aggressive in the early game and put them to high damages before you actually hit the stride turns, which the Vanguard deck is absolutely capable of doing if they have the right cards. And we've seen a bit of a slower draw for our Vanguard player here, not really getting a lot of the Blaster Engine going.
Which is unfortunate, especially for a Vanguard deck that does rely relatively heavily on getting that Blaster Engine out.
So we see him attacking the rear guard, and the attack is guarded. A no guard from the Vanguard, a Benon, a perfect guard, and a critical trigger. The drive trigger chase, giving crit to the Vanguard, and a return crit by our Gear Chronicle player, giving power to the Vanguard.
Alright, just looks like they're checking, make sure to see where everything goes there. That's all the counterblasts used awfully early there by the Royals player.
I'm not particularly sure what happened there. I think we've seen our Gearcron player miss taking a damage. Oh, there we go. There it is. I was like, I'm pretty sure I saw a critical trigger, and I was sure that it was announced the crit was given to the Vanguard, so I was just very curious as to what was happening there.
Yeah, it looks like there was a bit of a delay on the brain, I guess.
I think that must have been the case. Maybe just making sure things were guarded correctly when our Royal Paladin player asked how the History Maker survived, and our Gear Chronicle player did in fact guard that earlier in the turn.
Or potentially even they were answering a judging question as well, as our Gearcron player is also our resident judge for the tournaments.
Very, very true. So we'll see what the Gear Chronicle player decides to stride into. We could see a Metallica Phoenix, but given the look of the board, he's thinking he could possibly go into Chronos Command and actually pressure with a little bit of on-hit effects. So we'll see what happens.
That depends on what he wants to do. Does he want to burn the hand out a little bit? Because the field is very important for the Royals player. If he can put that on hit, we're gonna force you to take a heap of cards out of the field. Then yeah, that's a really good idea. Or you could just go sheer power. But he chooses Chronos Command.
Does go with the Chronos Command. Thinking using the stride skill to call a unit and time leap into that History Maker.
Another very good card for Gearcron.
Yeah, well, the addition of the Chronojet Dragon G in the deck has just really jumped the deck's power level up immensely, just to be able to call any, not per se useless, but cards that don't have a massive effect and time leap them into the exact units that you need are absolutely fantastic.
There's a TikTok as well out on the field.
No, that's our Heart Thump Worker. That is the critical trigger that moves to Soul to draw.
My mistake. They look awfully similar.
They very much do. So we see the attack with the History Maker using its skill to time leap the Chronodran, allowing you to search a Melon and then moving to Soul to search a grade 3 that will return to the hand at the end of the turn. Just another nice way to thin the deck a little.
It also gives you that guaranteed stride next turn. Like, you're not going to miss striding next turn because you don't have a grade 3.
Exactly.
It's always good to be able to know that you can stride the following turn.
Oh, it's always a great feeling. So our Royal Paladin player deciding how he wishes to guard this attack. Intercept.
Like an intercept.
Very true. So attacking for 26, forgetting to activate the Heart Thump Worker. So missing a draw there, but that's alright.
There's a PG.
A stand trigger, that's interesting.
Gives power to the grade 1 effect to... Nope.
No, okay, guess he must have given all effects there.
Had to figure that one out there for a little while.
No, he's... So we see some Melon shenanigans now. That stand trigger actually proving very, very useful. Because now he's actually able to loop his Owatar like he would not normally be able to do, and a heal trigger from our Royal Paladin player.
Nice timing there.
Very, very nice timing.
As we say in the game, heal triggers can change the game very quickly.
Very, very true. Giving power to the rear guard. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I think it would be better on the Vanguard, knowing that this attack has to go to the Vanguard to be able to do what it wants to.
It's really interesting, but I think as a Royal Paladin player, he is trying to prioritize that field to try and keep that alive as much as he can.
Very true. And the draw trigger. Oh, of course, because the drive trigger check was actually the Urwatar. So
Alright.
not being able to do the Urwatar shenanigans, which does hurt a little bit.
It is a Gearcron deck, so it ultimately doesn't matter that much.
Well, that's very true. Another heal trigger.
Oh, that's
wow.
yeah. That's interesting, isn't it?
Well, that is definitely something, and our Gearcron player electing not to attack with the Melem, just deciding to leave it on board.
I think after those heal triggers, the Gearcon player just went, you know what, it's your turn now.
Yeah, you can have it.
Well, at this point, you got to be thinking as a Gearcron player, he's gone through 2 heal triggers already, early game. That's good for you, because you know they're no longer in the deck.
Very true, and also limits the ability to G-Guard, which makes those next stage turns very prevalent.
Which could be coming up next, quite possibly.
Very true.
There's so many options in that stride zone.
Oh, there are. And the Gear Chronicle deck is notorious for teching depending on the meta. So if we see the meta slow down a little bit and there's not as many aggro decks, you'll see the resurgence of like Gear Groovy and perhaps the new Generation Break 8 coming into the effect. And if it's a little more aggro and things are more reliant on their field, they will go with the Chronos Command package just to punish the decks that do heavily rely on the rear guards.
Yeah, which is obviously, as you can see right now, Saint Guard deck, which has a full field and is trying to keep that full field as much as possible.
Exactly. Like, for instance, our Saint Guard player has just played perfectly into the next turn of our Gear Chronicle player, because he's just going to stride into Chronos Command Revolution and just return that board straight to the bottom.
We're just gonna punish the Royal Paladin player something bad. The Royal Paladin player really needs to throw out his best turn right now, and I don't think he's going to be able to do it without that Blaster Engine.
Well, he kind of has a little bit of the Blaster Engine available, but he's only got a few counterblast. He's only got one counterblast, which just isn't quite enough.
No, I mean, he does have Lu and Flogel out, but I don't think they're going to be able to do as much as what he hopes.
And no guard declared. A draw trigger, giving power to Benon, drawing. Second check is Buckle, and third is a Flogel.
Which is nice, getting that crit out.
Crit to Vanguard and power to the rear by the looks. A heal trigger of his own, the Gear Chronicle player seems pretty happy about that one.
I mean, why wouldn't you be? Let's be honest, it's a nice check. Power to Vanguard off that one.
And a stride fodder. So again, our Gear Chronicle player probably pretty happy. He's got the grade 3 searched out. Oh, and another trigger, giving more power here. So 21,000. Oh, going after the Melem. Good attack, smart attack by our Saint Guard player.
That really was a good attack, but it didn't do enough damage.
And now we see what the next stride is. The top deck's a grade 3, so he's able to stride.
Now, what does he do is a question. We've got Metallica Phoenix next stage.
It has to be Chronos Command. It has to be. Which
he does hit, yep.
So
bye-bye field.
Let's see how he decides to stack the effects here. Because he could calls the Urwatar and time leaps. Here we go.
This is looking like
time
a big
leap into the Melem. This is getting interesting right now.
I mean, I don't think the Royal has enough hands to hold this.
I think he'll survive this turn, but after the field wipe and essentially only having the cards in his hand to be able to use, I don't think he'll be able to survive a next stage.
No, definitely not. Like, at this point, he has effectively lost the game.
Well,
because
it's interesting to see. Like, we do see our Gear Chronicle player at 5 damage to 3, which is still quite a disadvantage, but it just depends on how the next few turns play out.
Let's be honest, the Royal Paladin player needs to get awfully lucky.
Yes, that is very true.
And he's already burned through 2 of those 4 heal triggers.
And I did just notice a heal trigger in the hand of our Gear Chronicle player, meaning he is very, very, very set for the next turn.
Yeah, so at this point, what can you do? I mean, we can obviously see the field in their hands, and we know, like, you'd play this out, but there's not a lot the Royal Paladin player can do right now.
No, not particularly.
That early lack of early aggression, I guess.
Well, that's exactly right. Electing to keep the critical trigger and the Melem, the rest go to the bottom. And there goes all of our Saint Guard resources.
I like that. That's just, as a Paladin player, that's just worrying. Like, what can you do?
Not a lot, realistically.
And the hand's now starting to get smaller and smaller as the guards come out.
Declares no guard. So the first is a history. Stand trigger. Giving all effects there. And another history maker. So 2 history makers in hand. Gets a critical. So interesting. 16,000 attack to 16,000. A 5k guard. He definitely has that available in his hand. Drops a Flogel. Just attacking with Melon to be able to time leap to a grade 0. Goes into a TikTok. Very, very strong play, setting up for the next turn. And I believe the next turn will be a next stage, looking at the way he set up his board.
It's not obvious, is it?
No, when you see that TikTok come out, you know things are going to get interesting.
Now, here we go. What can the Royal Paladin do to come back right now?
I believe he's probably going to stride into a Saint Guard again, because he doesn't really have any options, and just load the board up and start swinging and see what happens, I suppose.
Yeah, maybe hope to get lucky.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much going to be it. But look at the hand size for the Gearcron player. It's about 9 or 10 cards by the look of it.
We do drop a stride fodder for, yep, Saint Guard.
I believe there are 11 cards in our Gear Chronicle player's hand.
That's a fair few.
And we see the Saint Guard turn. Just allocating the power that the stride gives him, an extra 6k to the front row. Big swing, will probably be perfect guarded.
Which it is.
Discarding.
Next stage.
The draw trigger is very interesting. That may actually be enough to keep him alive.
That was a critical that he just checked, I believe, as well for the draw trigger.
Yeah, I believe he drew the critical trigger, which is another nice bit of shield. But look at this hand from our Gearcron player.
There's
just
G-Guard.
deciding to G-Guard.
There's not even a worry right now for the Gearcron player. He's up, and then there's a time leap. Was that a time leap? Or?
No, that's put that unit on the bottom, shuffle your deck, and call the top card.
Interesting. It does get rid of the power, which is a nice effect.
Well, I believe when it's called again, the power will come back, but it's just essentially to get rid of that with the critical trigger.
Which didn't change much ultimately, but does get rid of the clear of the trigger.
Well, no, it's, yeah, pretty much just to limit the power a little bit. It's just to make the guarding a little bit easier on our Gear Chronicle player.
Which is ultimately a smart idea, and a History Maker and a grade 1 would rock for guard there.
Yes, so, and another heal trigger for our Gear Chronicle player.
So 2 heals out of the decks for both players right now.
I think we've seen a third from our Gear Chronicle player. I think he's got one in the damage zone, I believe. I'm not entirely sure, but I think if I've been keeping track, there is one there.
I think you might be correct.
So he's just deciding what he wants to stride into here. Could be Metallica Phoenix or Next Stage. It is that beautiful Secret Generation rare Next Stage.
That is a nice looking card, and this turn's about to go off by the looks of this.
Well, we'll see. He doesn't particularly have a lot of melons available. I know that this... I think I've seen 3 so far. So putting the Flogel on the bottom just to punish the fact that the Royal Paladin player didn't use its effect to be able to put it back into the deck. So this might be the most destructive next stage turn you've ever seen, but it will still get probably a decent amount out of the Royal Paladin player's hand.
Yeah, the setup got a little bit janky towards the end for the Gearcron player. Just didn't have enough stuff to really make the most out of this turn right now.
So a stand trigger?
Stand, however.
Yeah, there's that melon he's looking for, and a critical trigger. So probably giving all effects to the rear guard, he does.
Yep.
Then using next stage's a lovely skill. Persona flipping and discarding 3 to be able to restand.
Which is going to force more cards out of the hand right now.
So 1 History Maker, a critical trigger, and I couldn't quite see the third. Ah, the
stand trigger?
Stand trigger, the Urwatar. Very interesting.
Going after that Blaster Dark again.
He really wants that intercept off the board.
Ultimately, he's still burning cards out of the Royal Paladin player's hand, which is the goal of this turn by the looks of it right now.
Very true. And 26,000 attack from the Chronojet Dragon G. Looks like our Royal Paladin player might be considering a G-Guard.
He's thinking about it.
He is thinking about it. Does have a
there
heal.
we go. Laser shield, I think it is.
I believe so. So I believe that puts him to 26, which is even. Oh, sorry, 1 to pass, I believe. And nothing
doesn't
there.
get the trigger.
And 21 is another 15k. We'll see what he does decide to.
Another.
Which I believe only leaves him with 2 perfect guards in his hand. So
Yeah,
we'll see what he gets.
Can he top deck? He does get a Blaster Ducks, or Blaster Blade Spirit, sorry.
He's able to stride, but at what cost?
Honestly, too much at this point, but he's going to need to stride. He doesn't have a choice.
It's very interesting. He could just call the Blaster Blade Spirit, but he decides not to. Goes into another Saint Guard, so just putting everything on the line here.
Right, well, he doesn't have much of a choice, let's be honest. He needs to throw everything at the Gearcon player right now.
Very, very true. So we'll see how this goes. Oh, straight quickest perfect guard of that Gear Chronicle player's life.
There is another one in there, if I'm correct. Is it
I
perfect
do
guard
believe so.
earlier?
I think he's just checking what he has or hasn't discarded. He's thinking of how many copies of things he still has in the deck, and does discard the Melon, and I believe that is the last one.
There's a critical trigger as well.
Beautiful.
Out from the Royal. Another critical.
Crit. Oh dear. Alrighty, this could get interesting.
The luck might have changed here.
I don't think so, seeing as how we do see the Gear Cat and we know that there's a heal trigger in the hand. This is the most opportune time to go for it.
Very true, to clear that crit on the other side as well.
Yes. So head her around.
Interesting to put the Blaster Dark on the bottom of the deck.
Yes, I believe our Gear Chronicle player may have made a bit of a mistake there.
Making sure to cut.
Electing that he does want to cut the deck. Oh, there's that Blaster Dark again.
That was interesting. It does happen though, an awful lot.
It's alright, so getting an extra 10k to the Vanguard off of the Gear Cat's effect, because the unit was returned.
It actually puts a nice little
10k
bonus
boost on the
that
Vanguard.
Yeah, you can't complain about that at any point. It's gonna make it a lot harder for the aggression of the Saint Guard deck to right now punch through that.
Yes. So just asking for numbers.
Looks like it can hit by the looks of that.
It does, but a 5k intercept is enough to stop it. And attacking the rear guard, which he's happily letting go.
Not too worried about that next stage.
No,
though.
especially because he's got History Makers in hand, I believe. And as I
Very
say it, it's right there. Striding, here's another next stage. I believe this will be the game.
This does look like the end of the game with, I think, 4 cards
Oh,
in
interesting. Calling a crit, time leaping. We'll see how this goes. There's no melons left by the looks of it, so he goes to something a little bit different. This might be a bit of an unorthodox play, but we'll see how it goes.
It doesn't really matter, to be honest.
Well, it might.
The Royal Paladin has no more than 4 cards in hand with an intercept. That's not a huge amount of guard for a next stage turn.
Yes, and this next stage turn will be very, very interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, it will. With not a complete setup, it's going to be a bit interesting.
Well, we'll see how the Gear Chronicle play goes. So first, second, here's that
And
crit. Yep, well, that is the game.
Yeah, that's game.
And what a game.
Yeah, it did come down to triggers a lot throughout that, and honestly, where it turned for the Gearcon player to really just win this was definitely the fact that they just went, we're just going to blow your field up, and there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, the Saint Guard player playing straight into the Chronos Revolution was just a huge swing for the Gear Chronicle player to be able to get back into the game. If not for that, he really didn't have enough of a setup to be able to do what he wants to do as a Gearcron player, which is loop Metallica Phoenix as a first stride with Watara and Melon to get a massive hand advantage that the Royals just can't punch through.
He, however, really did just take the option that he had and made the most of it, which was basically punishing him for, let's set up that field because I'm going to get rid of it, and then I'm just going to keep attacking you until you don't have a hand because you don't have a field now.
And that is the danger of Gear Chronicle. If you don't have quite enough early aggression and don't have the ability to recoup the cards that you have committed to the field that they can essentially return at any moment's notice. There's just a massive gap in what that deck can do to you that you can't actually play around. The Gearcrons just go, oh, we'll get rid of that field, that's all right, and we've got a massive hand due to our Metallicas and our Urwatars with our Melon turn, which is just a massive stride turn. And really, against a Vanguard player that's putting out maybe 3 or 4 attacks per turn, granted they are large attacks, they need to be able to then be able to guard against what's coming back at them by the Gear Chronicle player.
Which is very, very, very difficult, as you saw in that game.
Oh, they just have such potent strides. It's very, very strange to see the difference between Gear Chronicles on release to now, and just the difference in the power levels.
Oh, it's absolutely insane. Anyway, that's us, I think.
I believe that is. We'd like to thank you once again for watching, and if you would be so kind to leave a like and perhaps subscribe for more, we'll be happy to see you next time.
See yous.